Slapping gums at each other. Any chance they get. The fight clock is brought to you by Modelo. One of the greatest knockouts you'll ever see.
It's time
for you to sit back, relax, and listen to a complete and fucking utter armchair expert give his completely and utterly useless opinions on the one hell of an amazing sport that is MMA.
G'day guys, far out, this is all foreign to me. I've been flat out doing something else lately, that's why I haven't really been doing much podcasting, but I figured I better do one tonight. I'm recording on Tuesday the 9th. This will be out by Saturday, hopefully all going well. Figured I better do one tonight because, ladies and gentlemen, have we got a stacked card coming up in the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden in New York. Ending in, of course, being capped off by the fight that everyone has wanted to see for months. Israel Adesanya versus Alex Poatan, or Hands of Steel, Periera, for the 185 middleweight division championship. But it doesn't end there, ladies and gentlemen, because it is a truly stacked card with some awesome fights, and I'm here to talk about all that. So I'm going to take a break, listen back to all this, get the card up so I can truly rank it and say who I think's going to win each fight, and yeah, we'll just get on with it. All that and more when I come back. Alright, we are back, ladies and gentlemen, with UFC 281. The Rumble in November. What was that? Rumble in the Jungle. That's a bit better. Coming to us, of course. Well, us in Australia this Sunday, but if you're in America, it's Saturday. As always, as I said, in the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden in New York. Not gonna sing it again. But of course, I've got the UFC website up as always, the old reliable. And we start the main card with Dan Hooker versus Claudio Puelles, I think is how you pronounce that. Of course, my boy Dan is the favourite to win, and sorry, Claudio, I don't know what your record is, which I really should not be judging a fight when I don't know the other guy's record, because anything can happen in MMA, but I'm going with my boy Dan on that one. Just such superior striking and everything else. Of course, trains at the same gym as Izzy. Yeah, I got to go with my boy Dan on that one. Alright, next fight is Frankie Edgar versus Chris Gutierrez. I don't think I pronounced that right. No, it wouldn't be Gutter, whatever. Glad to see Frankie Edgar getting some shine, to be honest. Glad to see him getting some shine on a card like this. They're saying he's the underdog. What is Chris's record, actually? Chris Gutierrez, I think. What is his record? Okay, 18 wins, 3 losses, and 2 draws, I think. Alright, he won his last fight by TKO in round 2. Alright, and that's the only time he's fought this year. Oh shit, he hasn't fought since March. Interesting. Let's see what he's... And he won both his fights in 2021 by decision, actually, in the same round. Sorry, what am I meaning in the same round? They're all UFC 258 and what am I talking about? They're both 3-round fights. He drew in... okay, his record's pretty consistent. He's getting either decision wins or TKO/knockouts. Yeah, geez, he's winning a lot. Actually, his last loss was in 2018. Jeez, that's interesting. According to Google, anyway. Who do I go for in this one? Frankie's a legend, of course, ranked number 12, but whereas Chris isn't ranked. I mean, rankings don't mean shit, of course, given, Pereira's fighting for the belt, that don't mean much, but, with that record, I mean, Frankie's is... What is Frankie's, actually? Let's go back to what I was on. I mean, he's a veteran, so you'd expect a record like that. He's got more wins than losses, so it's not bad. Not bad at all, but I think I'm going to have to go with Chris, to be honest. I think I'm going to have to go with Chris on that one. Sorry, Frankie, I love you, but I'm going to have to go with Chris on that one. Alright, we're getting into the meat of the matter, ladies and gentlemen. One of the fights I've been looking forward to the absolute most. Dustin the Diamond Poirier versus Michael. I kicked Tony Ferguson in the face and made him a meme. Chandler. I shouldn't laugh. I love Tony. But that fight, wow. I mean, to Tony's credit, he gave it to Chandler in that fight. He absolutely gave it to him, but they're saying Dustin's going to win. Of course, Dustin's ranked 2, whereas Chandler's ranked 5. They're pretty close in rankings, actually, as far as lightweights. If you would ask me, say a month or two ago, about this fight, I would have told you 100% going to be a scrap. But to be honest, I just reckon Dustin might play it smart, to be honest. He's a very skillful fighter. And also intellectual fighter. I reckon he might tire Chandler out, because Chandler's going to come, guarantee it, Chandler's going to come all guns blazing, which you got to give Chandler credit for. He has, from the moment he landed in the UFC, put on a show. You got to give him that. And he was very successful in Bellator in his own right. So you could see why Dana got him over. Another person to have in the lightweight division. You can't fault it. But yeah. Who do I think is going to win this? This is a hard one. This is a hard one to pick who's going to win. Because they have, I mean, to be honest, beefs in MMA they're either legitimate, like Conor and Khabib, or they're, just to sell the fight and, they're friends after. It's the same in boxing, to be fair. Yeah, I guess if they're taking pictures after, we'll know it's all fake. But thus far, it's been pretty real, and it doesn't sound as if they've been making it up. So I guess we'll see what happens. Speaking of boxing, actually, I might mention something once I get through this card, because I'll get to that after. But who do I think is going to win this? If Dustin plays it smart and tires Chandler out, I reckon Dustin will take it in the later rounds. I'm assuming it's a 3-round fight. So it might go the distance, or Dustin will take it in the 3rd round. But if they both come out all guns blazing, I reckon Chandler might knock him out. Which will be a shame to see, because he's such a nice guy, Dustin. He really is. He's the sort of guy you'd love to meet, honestly. But, yeah, I'm not calling that fight either way, to be honest. It's going to be hard to do. Now, another fight I've been looking forward to that actually doesn't have odds. The champion in the women's strawweight division, it's a women's strawweight title bout, of course, between Carla Esparza, who of course won the belt at UFC 274 after that infamous snooze fest with Thug Rose, versus one of the best fighters in that division. Was unlucky to lose her belt to Thug Rose and is again co-main event to Izzy, just like she was at UFC 248, and she arguably saved that card. Zhang Weili. Oh baby, this one is not going to be a snooze fest, I can guarantee you that. Who do I think's going to win though? They don't even have odds for it, so that's telling. It's all going to depend on how Weili does. She, of course, had the fight with Joanna. She had the redemption fight, which wasn't anywhere near as good as the first one, and I missed the first one, sadly, which I'm still sad about, which saved UFC 248, as I said, single-handedly, and was deserved Fight of the Year in 2020. When, of course, there wasn't many fights on with people. Yeah, it all depends on how Weili goes. If she goes guns blazing, who knows how Carla's going to be. But yeah, I don't know who's going to win that one, to be honest. It's going to be one hell of a fight, though. But, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the fight that everyone has been waiting for. Israel, the last stylebender, Adesanya, versus Alex Hands of Steel Periera for the 185 division title, or the middleweight title. They're, of course, saying Izzy's going to win, which shouldn't be a surprise because he's the champion. And Izzy I actually read an article earlier that said that Izzy said he was going to take some tactics from Floyd Money Mayweather in this fight, which he's basically been emulating Floyd Money Mayweather pretty much ever since he won the title, so that doesn't surprise anyone. Pereira's the real deal, though, man. Pereira is the absolute, utter real deal. I thought Costa would beat Izzy after I saw his fight with Yoel Romero, and he, of course, didn't. Partly because Izzy ran from him and fought him later on in the fight, but also partly because I don't think he was all there. But Pereira is the real deal, man. The absolute real deal, and could very well take over this division. If he wins, will he retain the title? That's another question, because you got guys like Whittaker and even Vettori in the division, who I did think he probably should have fought before he got this chance at the belt, which at very least Whittaker anyway he should have fought, but I could see why the UFC are doing it. They were going to do it eventually anyway, and they probably just want to capitalise on the publicity that'll come from it, from a big card like this, so I can see why they've done it. It's whether or not Alex will win is really going to depend on the way the fight goes. Izzy ain't going to meet him in the middle, I could tell you that right now. He's going to go back to the old reliable of evade for however long, 5 rounds or whatever, until they're gassed, and then do what you have to do, or even just evade for the whole fight like he did against Whittaker and especially Cannonier. But if Alex can figure out a way to just, pressurize that or get him in a spot where he can strike him, he's called Hands of Steel for a reason, man. He really is. if he wants any chance of winning, that's what he's got to do, because the fight cannot go the distance if he wants to win, because Izzy's going to retain if it goes the distance, because that's just the way it always seems to go, even in those fights like GSP versus Johnny Hendricks, where Johnny Hendricks clearly won. But I just don't know. I just don't know how this fight's going to go, because we all know how Izzy fights go. He'll run and hide as much as he can, but Periera is the real deal. Absolutely Izzy's toughest test yet, though. Absolutely. And it's either going to be a snooze fest or it's going to be a banger. Who bloody knows? But I'm going to take a short break, because I've been recording for 7 minutes talking about the end of this card, because I had to re-record a few things because I stuffed up the original recordings to this. And when we come back, I want to talk about at least one other thing that has happened in the world of MMA. Possibly more, but definitely one thing. All that and more when I come back. There's two things I want to talk about in the lead up to the end of this podcast, which will be nearly 20 minutes by the time it's over. One is, we'll speak of the boxing first. MMA legend, fought in Pride, fought in K1, came over to the UFC, and now of course is in a big legal battle with him, or he will be. Mark the Super Samoan Hunt, actually I should say, or Samoan Hunt. Famous for the walk-off knockout, survived a head kick from Stipe Miocic. What am I talking about? Miko Krokop. What am I talking about? Stipe Miocic. Survived a head kick from Miko Krokop, the infamous story, fucking left foot hospital, right foot cemetery. I probably have that around the wrong way. But Mark Hunt had a boxing fight over the weekend against Sonny Bill Williams, of course a rugby player, again, like Paul Gallen was, and claimed, and I believe genuinely, that this is his last fight. He's retiring from combat sports after this fight, after 31 years in the game. What more can you say about Mark Hunt? Legend. Fought some of the toughest people around. He himself is, of course, tough. And he goes out with a win. Probably getting some cash, let's be honest. Either for his legal fight or just for his family. Which you got to commend him for. Absolute and utter legend of this sport that probably, sadly, is remembered far more for the fiasco of UFC 200, when he, of course, fought none other than the beast incarnate himself, Brock Lesnar, on a one-fight deal from WWE, from a 5-year layoff in WWE. Came back, fought him, and has never fought since. Of course, because he got suspended, and that's another story. If you want to know more about that, go to episode 7, where we talk in detail about UFC 200, but yeah, what more can you say about Mark Hunt, man? Sadly, he probably is remembered more for that than anything else, when he really should be remembered for a lot of his fights, because they're just legendary, some of them. And probably also remembered for his legal battle with the UFC, which, you got to say good on him, because he genuinely wants a better environment for fighters, where, as much as I sort of say some of it is, a little bit, and I do agree that no one could have run the UFC like Dana has. Some of it is true, let's be honest. The claims about fighter pay and better healthcare, etc. I mean, there was an infamous story that went around years ago that a guy who fought on a Facebook Live card got $5,000 to fight on that card. And you might think that is good money, and when you come from the little leagues that pay you $50 a night or whatever, it probably is good money. But when you think about all of what goes into that, travel, camp, all that sort of stuff, health care, it's nothing. It doesn't cover any of it. You're literally working jobs to, pay for things when you're doing what's supposed to be a job, what has been a job for a lot of people, that requires you to basically put your health and life on the line every time you step in that octagon. So some of it is true, and you really got to commend Mark for fighting for that. So I'm glad he went out with a win, and I wish him all the best for the future. Definitely an Aussie and New Zealand legend, and a legend of the fight game overall. But the second thing I want to talk about briefly is the fact that there's rumours, again, that Jon Jones is going to return. Against who is another question. Stipe, of course, has had a long layoff. And Francis, I believe, is still recovering from his knee injury, and by all accounts, still on the outs with the UFC. So, who's it going to be at heavyweight that he's going to fight? Francis is apparently 293 pounds now, by the way, according to the bad guy Charles Sonnen. Which, obviously he can clearly come back down from. Brock used to come back down from 300 pounds. So clearly it's doable, but it would probably kill you to come down from that weight. But anyway, but yeah, who Jon Jones is going to fight is another question. And also he is 260 apparently, so he says, and he looks it. But the one thing that isn't 260 pounds are his legs. And you would think of a solid heavyweight like Francis or Stipe or even Bam Bam Tuivasa, especially actually, with big thick legs, leg kicks those often enough. You'd think that'd be enough for them to snap like Connor's did, and your career's never the same after that, as we saw with Anderson, as we're probably going to see with Chris Weidman, and probably even Connor, even though his leg's titanium now and he weighs 190 pounds. But yeah, just wanted to discuss those two things, of course, to end the podcast off. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Definitely looking forward to this card that's coming, as I'm sure you all are, and I'll watch it from either home or the pub that I've plugged in other episodes of this podcast, most likely. UFC 281 in the Garden in New York. New York! New York, New York. Yeah, anyway, guys, till next time, take it easy.